What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another Pound for Pound ATL. Joined as always by my co-host Jonathan Holder. Jonathan, what's going on, brother?
Man, it's not been too bad a day. Happy to be on here talking some Falcons off-season football.
There it is.
With the beautiful chat here.
There you go. Yeah, it was woke up a little chilly this morning.
Man,
Like winter decided to poke its head back out here in the south. Which if you
I mean,
forgot to oh
no,
yeah, go ahead.
uh, uh, I'm hoping that the heat wave, not heat wave, but the warmer weather maybe had some of the bugs being like, all right, we're gonna hatch now, and then that freeze just killed them all, and then we will have less and less bugs or fewer bugs this coming spring and summer.
Yeah, no, yeah, that I wouldn't mind. All right, Willie's telling me I missed a Y in the thumbnail. Well, if that's the case, I'll have to fix that. Y'all know me. Sometimes I got to spell it because I missed the ing in the title too. Uh,
Yep,
the Falcons looking into add pass rusher instead of
yep,
adding
yep.
pass
I just
rusher.
saw that.
Yeah, I know. I've been sitting there staring at it like that gummit. Like I said, I had to fix that post, as they say.
We'll fix
Uh,
the post. Don't
that's
worry
right.
about
We'll fix it in post. Y'all get it live. Y'all get it raw. Y'all get all the mistakes and the mess ups and everything else. So, but that's why y'all show up, right? Um,
as some of my favorite reaction channel that I watch. It's called Previewed,
mhm.
and in the lead up to the actual reaction, they'll be like, all if you want to watch the unedited version with all the burps and farts and uninteresting parts.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. Like there for a little while when we were doing like I was trying to set up a Patreon, right?
Yeah.
Just trying to see if anybody would be interested in that. And one of the things that we were doing was like, you know how we get on here 15, 20 minutes before we start and we go back and forth just kind of as like a pre-show type deal. I was
Mhm.
recording all that and putting that up there. Um, but the Patreon stuff never really did take off. So uh, if nobody gets to see that. But well, we
It's
gotta.
privileged. It's highly classified information
That's right. That's right.
for our eyes only.
That's it. Well, we got a handful of things to get into and talk about, and like get the conversation going. So without further ado, we might as well just get into it. All right. So it's been somewhat of a quiet week since like you had the first rush of free agency. Obviously, the big news of signing Kirk Cousins and revamping almost the entire wide receiver room with adding Darnell Mooney and Rondell
Rundown more.
Moore, bringing back Cordell Hodge, but letting Mac Hollins walk, and no word whatsoever on if they're bringing back Scotty Miller, which I highly doubt with the other speed that they have brought in. So
Yeah, no.
um, it
Oh, and then
seems
Ray
Ray
Ray McCloud.
McLeod. Yep, Ray McLeod, which probably signals more about like what they think of Avery Williams and the fact that Cordell obviously said his goodbye. So you've had to replace your punt and your kick returner. And,
Well,
and
what I was happy to see is one of my favorite things about Cordero. The guy was seemed to be an awesome teammate, awesome locker room guy, all this other stuff. But one of my favorite things he did was he would come out. Didn't matter if he was home or away. He would come out early and play catch
right,
with fans in the seats. And it looks like Mooney kind of does the same thing. So
right. Yeah,
glad
from
to
what
see
I've
that
seen,
staying.
yeah, Mooney does the same deal, so that's good to see that the fans will the ones who go spend their money in that sense and go to the stadiums will still get that interaction, which is great. But they haven't done a ton on the defensive side now. As Nick is pointing out here, we re-signed Cardavius street yesterday.
Mhm.
So that adds some, much needed beef on the defensive line. But some of the guys that we thought in the early part of free agency that we would almost, be a shoe in to sign, the Leonard Floyds, the Jordan Fullers, there was a handful of other guys that we thought maybe we would sign because of the familiarity with the coaching staff has not materialized at all. We didn't go after any, uh, sizable, puns intended, I guess, nose tackles. So they may not be trying to do as a traditional 3-4 as what we might be thinking. So it's interesting if you look at like the Rams defense itself, like their defensive line. Obviously, they had all world Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
So that's something you're not going to be able to reproduce, right? You don't just get Aaron Donald every day of the week. Um, but you look at the fact that they last year, Raheem Morris had two rookies on that defensive line. Both of them were gotten in the later rounds, and both of them were like very productive for the Rams last year.
Yeah, but the bigger difference here between that and now is he did that with, and then he was also the DC, so he was more hands on with those guys.
Right.
Not saying he can't be as the head coach, but everything he's shown so far has been, uh, I'm bring he's going to be the CEO.
Right.
Right? He's
Yep.
not going to be that guy who's like, since I'm a defensive coach, I'm going to be really hands on the defense. I'm just going to kind of leave the offense alone. It seems more like I brought in Jimmy Lake to be my DC.
Yep.
He's going to be the DC. I'm going to let him handle that, and just make sure I keep an eye on everything. But I'm not going to get in there down and dirty. So I mean, whether or not that same coaching that got those two guys the success they did last year, whether or not we get that or not, who knows?
Yeah, and that's the deal. Is like you brought over Jay Rogers, who has coached Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, and gotten a lot out of them. You brought Jimmy Lake, who obviously, like in this particular draft, has ties to two edge rushers. Laiatu Latu, the
Mm-hmm.
kid out of UCLA, he played for Jimmy Lake when he was in Washington, and Braylon Trice, who is of Washington.
Yep.
Both those guys played under Jimmy Lake, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm pretty sure Chris will correct me if I'm wrong, because I know he pays attention to that section of college football.
To the Pac-2.
Yeah, the Pac-2 nowadays. But like it could be a deal where Jimmy Lake is more familiar with the college players, as far as that's where he came from. I'm not 100% sure on that, but we have not added a ton to the defense as far as I don't think we've even had one new signing. Am I like one new, like outside? Right. I didn't think so. Um, I'm interesting to I'm interested to see if Bud Dupree comes back.
Mhm. Well, if Bud Dupree comes back, okay, let's say Bud Dupree comes back, then and everybody else stays the same pretty much. Outside of Okuda and Calais Campbell, you're pretty much the exact same defense from last year, which wasn't a bad defense.
Right.
Um,
And it'll be interesting to see, like, with that being said, like we don't know for sure, but how influential last year was Jerry Gray in the defense, because he's still here, right? Um, like, so if they're just hoping to be able to pick up where they left off, you got Jerry Gray and you got Dave Huxtable, who was by all counts Ryan Nielsen's mentor. So you have those two, like, you know, high up brains. You know what I'm saying? Like defensive assistant types. So it'd be interesting to see how the defense comes together. Uh, so Chris says he's still hoping for Akio Witherspoon and John Johnson, which wouldn't surprise me either one of those. To be honest, those neither one of those guys have signed yet. Um, and I think part of the reason why we haven't maybe gone that route is I think they are trying to nail down an upgraded edge rusher, which we'll get into here in a minute.
Yeah.
Um, now Corey Thomas says he's got a quick question. He says, "Do y'all think we should have kept Ritter instead of Taylor?" Now, that's an interesting thing because I put out a tweet the other day, might have been yesterday. Let me pull up my profile as I have not been tweeting a ton, so I should be able to find it rather quickly. Maybe, who knows? Okay, this is what it was. This was yesterday. Um, I said Terry Fontenot rightfully gets praised for moves he makes. I wanted to establish that right off the rip. But every now and again, he'll have like a little bit of a head scratcher. So, but then there are things like this that really make me shake my head. Like, why didn't you either cut or redo the contract for Tyler Heinicke? He showed last year he was not necessarily worth the money. Okay. And what I mean by that is this was coming off of a tweet from Spotrac, who said the Heinicke's $1.32 million roster bonus was paid out that this past weekend, pretty much cementing that he was going to be your backup. Um, so I was just interested, like that's still giving Heinicke like high end backup money. And with I understood last year why you did that. Um, because he was more of a safety net in case Ritter did what Ritter did, right? And you felt like his style, wouldn't have to change too much when he came in. But heck, he played just as bad as Ritter did. Now, I know that we have offensive assistant in uh, Ken Zampese. There's some overlap with Zampese in Washington with Heinicke.
Yeah.
So that could be one of the reasons why maybe they felt like Arthur's scheme last season wasn't actually the best for him, and they
Yeah.
felt like they could get better play out of him if need be.
Well, here's what I'll say. I will say and we'll see what happens this year with Kirk Cousins, which I think Cousins is going to be fine. But with Kirk Cousins, potentially Heinicke, or there's been some talk about we had a lot of people at South Carolina's pro day, probably taking a look at Xavier Legette, probably also taking a look at Spencer Rattler,
Right.
and that's a guy that I have earmarked in the third, fourth round as a guy that if he's still there in the third or fourth round, I would not mind picking him up.
Right.
And but until we see otherwise, and then you look at his work in LA, right, with the Rams. So until I see something that shows me differently, I have the confidence in Zach Robinson because I guarantee he's going to have tremendous input on who their quarterback's going to be. I have confidence in him so that if they really felt like Ritter was the better option between those two players, then I think Ritter would still be here.
Right.
But like so, I don't think that if they really thought that Ritter was a in any way, shape, or form a better prospect or a better backup quarterback, because that's all they were going to be, than Taylor Heinicke, then that trade either goes down for somebody else or something along those lines, or uses something else to make that trade if they still really wanted Rondell.
Yeah,
So, like,
and it could also just been as easy as like as messy as last season was, that they felt like, maybe Arthur really did pound the table for Ritter. We don't know. And I'm not even going to sit here and try to speculate on that aspect. but maybe
Yeah.
they just felt like it was just better to, get him out of the building. And the fact that we were able to get a former second round wide receiver for him, and the Steelers only really had to give up a sixth rounder that could potentially go into a fourth rounder, I think is how it is, a conditional sixth for
Yeah.
Justin Fields is kind of crazy because Willie Doc with a $5 tip, and we appreciate you
Thank you,
greatly,
Willie
Willie.
Doc.
He says, how ironic is it that Arthur still ends up with Justin Fields and for a sixth rounder? Go defense in the first round, but get Penix in the second. Um, yeah, the interesting part about that is it's hilarious that the two quarterbacks that Arthur Smith ended up with out there in Pittsburgh, I'm going to be really interested to see how that plays out. And the reason why I say that is because those two guys don't do what Arthur wants to do.
Arthur was
And
over the middle.
right, he wants to work the middle of the field. He wants to work, run the ball, play action pass, middle of the field, and carve you up, suck you in, and then carve you up. And those two dudes really only make plays when they break contain. Now that aspect, like if you want to talk about like what Arthur, like the evolution of Arthur Smith's offense, really was the athletic mobile quarterback. And so if you want to talk about like that's the next step, like getting two guys who are better on the run than they are, anyway else, I'm just going to be like, I'm just going to keep a curious eye on Pittsburgh this year, just to see how that, because that just looks like it has the recipe to be a drama filled crap show, to be
Yeah,
honest.
like like I said, Russell Wilson is a guy that doesn't like to throw over the middle.
Right.
Okay, because he's short,
Yep.
and that's it's harder to see over the middle because you got at least three guys in the middle generally, and they're generally pretty tall guys. So trying to sift through that to get a clear picture of the middle of the field is a tall order for a short guy like that, pun intended.
Right.
Um, and so he likes to throw to the outsides, outside the numbers. Roddy White tweeted about that exactly. He's like, you get Sean Payton to come in with Russell Wilson, and Sean Payton again. If you look at how Breeze beat people, he didn't. He would throw the outs and he would throw the comebacks on the outside. He would do that stuff, but they were a lot the haymakers that they threw were the crossing routes, the in routes, the overs, all that stuff over the middle of the field. Now, Breeze was a short guy, but he would get up on his tippy toes,
Right.
do
Well,
that
that
stuff.
and that and the way they built that O line forever in the Saints is they had like that rock solid, center pocket,
Yeah,
to give him, the ability to step up and, maneuver, inside that middle pocket. I could really see like talking like Denver, like I could really see them going like with a Bo Nix type player, um, more accurate than like arm talent, so to speak,
yeah.
Um, anyway, Chris said, talking about, I still don't understand why people don't go want to go Penix. He will qualify for AARP by the time he takes over.
I
Uh,
mean, it'll be what an extra 1 or 2 years when you got quarterbacks. You're and going forward, unless things dramatically change somehow. Um, Going forward, you're going to see quarterbacks, the good ones, you're going to see them playing well into their 30s, like 35, 36, 37, and still being productive.
right.
Now, once they get past that, I think there's only going to be a select few that are really good past like 37,
I mean,
38.
Penix comes in only 2 years older than JJ McCarthy, and only like 2 years older than Drake May. He's 23. There's a part that said, that for a guy like Penix, he has what could be intriguing as long as the medical's clear. Let's put it this way, okay? Long as the teams look at it, his medical, because he has had some injury history, and if they look at it and say, "Oh yeah, he's good, it's clear," kind of like with Latu. Somebody was asking earlier, what about Latu's like neck injury or something like that? And I think
Mhm.
Chris himself, because like I said, Chris is our guy out west. Um, he said Latu was clear 2 years ago and has had zero problems since.
Yeah,
And so uh Penix is kind of in the same boat. And what I mean by that is like, he's hadn't had any problems the last couple of years in Washington, and he's played a lot of games. He's been through a lot of adversity, and he's got a lot of experience. And that might be so. There's some coaches out there that don't really have much interest in like dealing with a young guy. Like I
yeah,
think a lot about like Bruce Arians out when he was out in Arizona. Like he wanted Carson Palmer, and then when he got to Tampa, they went out and got Brady instead of dealing with he had one season of James Winston, and he was like, that's enough of that.
yeah.
And so
Like, that's enough of that. I'm going to go get the goat. Thank you very
right,
much,
exactly. Fred Butts with $2. We appreciate you,
Mr.
Fred.
Butts.
He said, I think something big is coming in the draft. What do you think? What big do you think is coming?
Man,
I'm curious to what you classify as big.
so if you haven't read it, I think it's Albert Breer article on SI. Like that is a awesome article because it kind of goes back like a couple years to Kirk Cousins, the negotiations that were going on at the time with Minnesota. Then it goes to like last year in the lead up to last season. They were doing some more discussions on contract talks and things like that. But at a certain point in that article, it talks about the Falcons, and the Falcons. It talks about like they had already reached out to the top three, and like there's just nothing there. Like
Yeah,
they don't. None of those teams want to move. Okay,
right.
could something happen? Yeah, I mean anything could happen, but it sounds to me like if we move up to I'm going to say the farthest we could probably go would be three,
Hmm.
and the amount of capital we'd have to give up to get there is probably going to be astronomical. And this
Right.
we're talking probably close to something like a Herschel Walker deal, the Ricky Williams
Yeah, I'm about
really
to say the
really
Saints
stupid.
trading everything
Ooh,
just to go get Ricky.
man,
Yeah, it was
yeah.
nuts.
Like so, I mean, we would be encroaching on that kind of territory, and it doesn't matter who we get, whether we get Jaden Daniels, we get Drake May, we get Caleb Williams. You get one of those guys at three, but if you had to give up essentially an entire draft's worth of picks, now it might be over a couple of years, but if you had to give up like 5, 6, 7 picks to move up 5 spots to number three,
Yeah, just to,
they will be lambasted by the fan base.
oh yeah. I think like either way this year to get a quarterback, you were going to have to give up something major one way or the other. And they chose this time around to give a first time play caller a guy who is already very familiar with what he wants to do. And that's Cousins. So that's what they chose to do. And now we just have to see if it comes out well.
Yeah,
Um,
well, and just you go in with Cousins. If the plan is let's do Cousins now, and either this year, if we can get the right guy in the right spot for us, uh, then cool. If not, you go into next year with like the succession quarterback is top of mind, and maybe next year we're in a better position to move up if we need to go get our guy than we are this year.
who knows? Andrew Bato says, "Do you guys like adding a cornerback at 8, preferably Taron Arnold?" As we are sitting here right now, and what is this? The 19th of March, almost exactly a month out from the draft itself. I would say that either edge or cornerback is probably what you're going to add at one. Um, the Taron Arnold, by all accounts that I've read, is a quality edge, like one of the better ones in this draft. So
Oh, you mean cornerback?
cornerback, yeah, brain's not working well. Cornerback, but it's also been highly rumored that we are interested in like an edge at 8. Like it's becoming a consensus, which we haven't done much of the like mockeries, which we might try to do one tonight. We haven't done much of the mockeries because boy, they got a consensus real quick. Um, and it got even more so after we signed Kirk Cousins. Because once you sign Kirk Cousins, that takes you out of the quarterback game, right? And that takes you out of the intrigue for what the uh as far as like mock draft goes. So I could see them going Turner. A lot of people are like I think it was Millie up here. I'm trying to see if I can find it. Okay, he says Verse is the best edge in the draft, and Latu second. Turner seems like a 1-year wonder type guy. Keep in mind, Turner was behind Will Anderson last year, who was behind, like it's Alabama. You get basically 1 year as the guy, in that program, at least the way it used to be. So, with that being said, Turner is your physical freak. He's a little
Yeah.
bit more raw, but he is like measurables are off the charts. Bendy, he can do everything that you want him to do. Like he can drop into coverage, he can rush the passer, spy, rush from the middle. So like Turner is really like it's a flavor draft as far as the like edge rushers go. The top three, there's 3 top edge rushers with Jared Verse, Latu, and Turner. Turner seems to be like the 1A, and where Verse and Latu are like 1A.1 and 1A.2. It really just comes down to your what flavor ice cream you want, basically.
Yeah, and like I've gone back and forth. I like from things I've seen, Turner's better in a 2 point stance. So if we are going more traditional 3-4, then you want guys that are better out of a 2 point stance than and versus better out of a 3 point stance.
Right.
That if you're playing 3-4, and he's a edge guy in that 3-4, how often is he going to get a chance to put his hand in the dirt?
Right.
But now, does that mean that he can't learn to be better coming out of a 2 point stance? I mean, yeah, he can. But then you got Latu, who's probably the most natural pass rusher and most technical pass rusher of.
Yeah, he's got like his technical prowess is one to like him and Verse have like some really good technique,
Yeah,
and Latu is up there as far as that goes. Now, Joe Houston with a tip there says
thank you,
he
Joe.
said that's funny. Don't forget Raheem was on Rams staff when they said F them picks, and they want to win now. Arthur's up there in age. They do want to win now, which is why like the title is titled what it is, and why we keep they have been rumored to be big game hunting as far as an edge goes. They were in, by all accounts, they were in on the Daniil Hunter.
Mhm.
They'd actually offered him 3 years, 75 million. But you know, um, Houston basically gave him a 2-year fully guaranteed contract, more or
Well,
less.
and he's also from the
Yeah, he's from
area.
that area and all that. No state tax, all that other jazz. But what I'm getting at is that we were in on him. We
They've
were
been trying.
right. We were heavily monitoring, by all reports, heavily monitoring uh, the Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa situation out there in the Chargers. And this past week, we have been uh, rumored to be like exploring a trade for Hassan Reddick. So Like, and that's a very like past 4 years. That's a double-digit sack guy for the past 4 years. Whether he was at Arizona or at Philly, so that's a guy that I'd be stoked if we added, depending on what we would have to give Philly and then how much we would have to pay Reddick, because he is right on that 30, 31 age. Um, so this would be like his last hurrah, so to speak. But I would not sneeze one bit at Reddick, because Reddick is
Yeah.
he's a chess piece, big time.
He's a guy. Like
Right,
he
right. He's a dude. He's not just a guy. He's not a jazz.
yes.
He's a dude.
Yeah.
Fred Butts with another $5. We appreciate
Thank
you,
you
Fred.
again, Mr. Butts.
He says, I think we're going to draft somebody nobody sees coming. BPA Brock Bowers could be the pick. And I'm not saying that it wouldn't be, but at this point, I will say this as far as um, that goes, they are going to have to make some more moves free agent wise before we go into the draft for me to really think that they would do something such as Brock Bowers or Rome Odunze if he's there at 8, or
Like
Malik Neighbors or whatever.
the only thing I'll say is if we were to get Lance Reddick, Hassan Reddick.
Lance Reddick, who is that? One of the Backstreet Boys or something?
No, I don't
No.
know. I think he was a basketball player. Maybe. Anyway,
Okay.
but Hassan Reddick, if we get him and I think if we get him, then you probably won't see any more like even mid-size. I think you'll see a lot. You'll just maybe see some more like vet minimum moves.
Right.
Then in that scenario, and that's kind of where we're at. In that scenario, I could see the only two real options I could see in that scenario would be wide receiver. So either Adunze, Neighbors, probably one of those two guys, right?
Yeah.
Or edge.
Right. You could get wild like if Harrison, Neighbors, and Adunze are all gone before we pick,
Mm-hmm.
and then wide receivers, what they have as the BPA, you could see something like a Brian Thomas at LSU as well, possibly.
Possibly.
But
I
that,
think
I just,
I think if all the wide receivers are gone, and we actually get to 8, and Minnesota has not been able to get up to something in front of us, I think, and especially if somehow JJ McCarthy is still available. Now,
yep.
if McCarthy is still available, I'm not. And don't kill me for this. I'm not 100% certain the Falcons don't take him themselves.
And then they could, especially with his age, and let him sit for a couple years.
Yep.
But Willie says Minnesota and Denver need a QB. They will fight over McCarthy. One of them could trade with the Falcons, and we could still get Latu versus Turner.
How far back is Denver?
Denver is 12, I think, because like if it's Denver, Denver's going to have to jump Minnesota.
I would go with Minnesota if I had my choice between. Now, obviously, if Denver offers up a whole, a much bigger deal, then that's one thing. But if I'm between 11 and 12, if I'm moving back from 8, and all 3 of my pass rushers are there, and I know that Minnesota's coming up to get McCarthy, I'm taking the Minnesota deal because I want to guarantee that if I move back, I'm getting the extra picks, but I'm still getting one of those 3 guys, one of those 3 pass rushers.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And that way we move back, get the extra picks, and we're guaranteed at least Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, or Latu. Like
Yep.
we're guaranteed one of those guys. So I don't want to move back any farther than 11 if I'm moving back personally.
Now there's like this draft does have some like interesting deeper like edge rushers. So this is a draft where you could really double dip because it's like it's not strong in a lot of positions, but it's strong in like edge, corner, and wide receiver. Like GTA Georgia Tech's boy says, give me Latu Chop, which is Chop Robinson, or Isaac. He's out of Penn State. Like the Penn State guy, and maybe even Chop Robinson there's a potential that they could be there in the second. And then there was a guy who I was looking at that, Chris, as JR brought up Gabriel Murphy the other day, and he's an interesting later round edge. Like if you wanted to double dip on edge, I could easily see this being a draft that you did so, because I think there are um, some good like rotational pieces. Um, they're like outside of the top three, and even the top three, none of those guys scream, Miles Murphy or Khalil Mack or I mean Miles Garrett, not Miles Murphy, Miles Garrett, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, they don't scream those guys. They scream like to me, they scream like maybe like a Zadarius Smith or um, just your solid like double digit sack guys, not your overall dominant like game record type guys. So if we get Tony Wright did us a solid here. He says 11 is Las Vegas, 12 is Minnesota,
Mhm.
13 is New Orleans, and 14 is Denver. So Minnesota at that 12 range, maybe even Las Vegas if they wanted to get a shot at McCarthy. Because make no mistake, McCarthy is the fourth quarterback off the board. And it's just a question of where.
I mean,
And you
potentially, we've heard, different people say different things about JJ McCarthy. Like he's anywhere
there's
from a second round pick to top 10, and top
yeah.
5, and in some cases even maybe like the number 2 quarterback
Yeah, I
off
was about
the
to
board.
say, like somebody put out draft files on Twitter, whoever they are, reports that the Commanders have interest in McCarthy with the second pick. Now, I think that's probably smoke more than anything else, but you got to keep in mind, like Jaden Daniels, he's on that upper tier as far as age, and he really is a 1 year wonder. Okay, so how much of his success is uh sorry. Dre says, he told me, he says, Dre Murphy says you can't go wrong with a guy named Murphy. Might be a little biased there, everybody, but no, I'm just kidding.
Little
Um,
bit.
but no, I think that like it really depends. Like once you get past Caleb Williams, like Drake May is a very solid prospect who people are trying to really poke holes in. Jaden Daniels has a lot of good things to like about him, but there's also some concern. So I can see where a pro team could fall in love with a McCarthy who ran a pro system with Jim Harbaugh and was asked to make some, you know, game time like big game move throws. Like a lot of his big throws came on like 3rd and 5 and that kept his team alive and stuff like that. So he gets dinged because he wasn't asked to do a lot. But why should he be asked to do a lot when the formula for them worked to perfection? Played defense, had a really good run game, and a quarterback who could put the ball where he needed to put it.
Yeah.
So uh yeah,
Like
that could be the biggest surprise to me.
what I saw of JJ McCarthy, like when I heard he was like a second round guy, third round guy, or whatever, uh, this is in season at the
Uh-huh.
time. And what I had seen of JJ McCarthy at the time, I was like, I would absolutely take this guy in the second or third round. Uh, and he's been moving up and
Yeah,
up.
he's like
And
steadily.
well, everything we hear is that the NFL, like just the NFL, all executives, coaches, all that stuff, look at JJ McCarthy far different than the media and the fans.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They see something about him that really intrigues them, whereas a lot of other people are like, again, I think because we see is when he plays on Sunday, yeah, he makes some of the throws that he needs to make, but like we saw the reason why that Michigan team was winning was because of the run game, because they
Right.
had
It
that
wasn't it
dominant.
wasn't necessarily because of JJ McCarthy until you like really dig into it. Until like and look, the vast majority of fans don't have the time nor the interest to really dig into it. and I don't blame you. Like, I really don't. But let's get into, since we're talking about mock draft or whatever. It's a mockery, my friend. Let's see what the consensus and what the establishments of the draft world is saying currently. So this is one that we're looking at here is from Daniel Jeremiah. Now, the closer we get to draft, the more you're probably going to see me mention Daniel Jeremiah, because a lot of times his drafts go off of what he's hearing from the league. And so that makes it interesting. He was one of the first pundits to have the Falcons taking Drake London. Uh, and also the same with them taking Bijan Robinson and all. So let's just see. The first three is really starting to shake out to be like, with the trading of Justin Fields, obviously Caleb Williams, right?
Yep.
They pretty much cemented that. I don't think that changes at all. Now here's where some flip flopping is going on. He's got Drake May going to the Commanders, and the Patriots taking Jaden Daniels. I would be really interested to see Jaden Daniels up there in New England. That would be a totally different style
Oh yeah.
from what New England has been used to.
Oh yeah.
So now here's a big deal. Here's his big chaos. He has the Vikings going all the way up to 4 to get JJ McCarthy. And you'll see with, like, because remember now the Vikings have traded with the Texans and grabbed an extra first round pick. Right now the Vikings are sitting on 2 first round picks. And you got to figure that they're going to do everything they can to try to get up into this area to get a QB.
Yep.
So here's another projected trade. So this is something like he doesn't do. That's the reason why I was like, all right, let's do this one, because Daniel Jeremiah doesn't do a ton of trades, right? So projected trade, he has the Jets coming up to grab Marvin Harrison. Now, I wonder if he'd change his mind now since the Jets have signed Mike Williams. They just signed Mike Williams today.
Yeah.
So, like, this one came out yesterday, I think. So that might change his mind there.
Possible.
Giants pick Malik Neighbors. Tennessee goes Joe Alt. Both of those make tons of sense. For us, he gives us Dallas Turner, which has become a steady Eddie type pick, for the Falcons, since like the Falcons took care of their offense in free agency, most notably signing Kirk Cousins. They still need to address their annual pass rush concerns. Ain't that
Yep.
every year, right? But in this scenario, he has us passing up on Rome Odunze. And he goes to the Bears with Caleb Williams. Now we're just going to keep rolling. Chargers, they moved back, picked up a tackle.
Yeah, they picked up
Fuaga,
Fuaga.
which makes sense with what Jim Harbaugh wants to run the ball.
Yep.
Arizona, they go back. Hello, what's happening? It just popped up. Hello. Anyway, Arizona, they go back to 11 and they pick up Verse, which makes sense. They haven't had a ton of edge rush. It's been apathetic. The Denver picks up Brock Bowers, which is interesting as far as that goes. Is best player available. Hey, what's up? Out of your Falcon minds? Appreciate y'all dropping in. It's our buddies. Anyway, Las Vegas takes Michael Penix. Interesting. So that's 5 quarterbacks in the first round.
Yeah.
New Orleans takes a tackle, Fashanu. Indianapolis.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah, that's fine. Indianapolis grabs Quentin Mitchell. Seahawks grab another tackle. Yep, sure. Troy out of Washington. Fuanu. Anyway, Jacksonville, there's your Taron Arnold. So he has the corners coming off a little later. J.C. Latham, tackle to the big. See, I wonder if that would change because they just signed Trent Brown. So now they got Brown and Brown. Orlando Brown and Trent Brown.
Yeah.
Hey, Latu doesn't have far drive.
No, he doesn't. But pick 19.
Yeah, pick 19. So, but they're going to have to do something to address the like Aaron Donald retiring. So in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
Tyler Guyton, tackle for Pittsburgh. They're going to need it. They're going to run the ball.
Yep.
Miami's grabbing an interior lineman. Philly is hello. Back up. Philly grabs Nate Wiggins, the speedster cornerback.
Yep.
Arizona grabs, which is they get both of the first round picks, right?
Yep.
So they grab Brian Thomas Jr. to replace Rondell Moore and Hollywood Brown. They lost both of them, so you know they had to get a pass catcher somewhere. Dallas gets an interior lineman. The Georgia lineman goes to Green Bay. Another edge, Darius Robinson. He's been flirting.
Ooh.
He's been coming up quite a bit, right?
I know. He was a guy that I would have looked at in the second round for the Falcons if we didn't go edge in the first. He's a guy that I would have looked at in the second.
I have to say this. Only missed. You always be throwing out some crazy takes. That's got to be the craziest. You take A.D. Mitchell over Odunze.
Yeah,
You have to be the only person I have seen that would say that they would take A.D. Mitchell over Odunze.
Oof.
All right. Anyway, keep rolling. The Cardinals are gonna double down and get Byron Murphy, probably the best D tackle. Buffalo gets another D tackle. Kool-Aid McKinstry goes to Detroit. They've been trying to fix that.
They've been trying to do something about them cornerbacks.
The rare unicorn of a white corner. Cooper DeJean goes to Baltimore, and then San Francisco gets Chop Robinson. He's another one that's on that edge. How many pass rushers do they need? They signed Leonard Floyd, Yatur Gross-Mato. They got Nick Bosa. Come on. Anyway. And then Adonai Mitchell. Is that A.D. Mitchell? He sneaks into the bottom of the first. A lot of people might expect to see Mitchell's teammate Worthy go here, but I feel like the Chiefs got their version of Worthy by signing Brown. So that's an interesting. Now there was another one that had a 2-round. Let's see here if I can get it real quick. Was there anything that stood out to you on that one that you thought was interesting?
Latu going 19.
Yeah,
that kind of surprises me. Not saying it won't happen. I know about Dallas Turner. I know about Jared Verse. I know they're kind of, physically they are more athletically gifted than Latu is. Latu's no slouch, but those two guys are a little bit better, just athletically than Latu is. The problem I always run into is you hear about, especially from a Falcons fan perspective, anytime we've gotten a guy and it's been like, dude is athletic, is all get out. He just needs to learn some moves. Problem is he never learns the moves.
Right. Right.
Now, different teams, different coaches, maybe they do different things for different, and maybe it works out for them more often than it does for us. But for us, it's always been, we just need a guy to learn how, he needs to learn a second move, but he never learns a second move. Uh-huh. Whereas a guy like Latu comes in and already has like that second move and probably a third move, and he's like so technically sound with all of his moves that it's just like I'm almost tempted to take Latu over the other two just because I want a guy that comes in and already knows how to pass, like actually pass rush, not just beat the average everyday college athlete, which is not like anywhere close to an NFL offensive lineman. And those are the guys that you're getting most of your sacks off of. Whereas a guy like Latu can come in and can, if he gets beat with his first move, he has a plan for the second move. And if he gets beat on the second move, maybe he's even got a plan for the third move,
Right.
Yep. And so when I start thinking like that, it's like, I want that guy who's ready-made to be a pass rusher in the NFL. And Latu, to me, feels like that guy that you don't have to like hope that he not only learns, but he actually takes the learning. He doesn't just do what he did in college, which in college, Dallas Turner Jared Verse are guys that they
Now,
found the move that worked 99% of the time, and that's what they do.
right.
Yeah.
I think like what I like about Turner and what I would not be upset about Turner at all is the versatility. That's something I keep thinking about. Like he would be a true outside linebacker, as far as not being a liability in coverage. Asked to do quite a bit at Alabama. That I'll take. Verse, I've liked Verse last year. I really wish he would have come out last year. Um, but uh, he's got a lot of power to him. Like I've watched him sack quarterbacks with tackles, So
Yeah.
and so I'm down with that.
But again, that like a guy that does that kind of stuff, like he does that kind of stuff in college because he's just that much more. He's so much better because he is an NFL player playing in the college game.
Right.
But he just relies on that and doesn't have to worry about anything else.
And then Latu, like Chris is saying, Latu absolutely tore up his pro day, like at around 270 pounds. Like
Yeah.
Latu, there's a lot to like with Latu. All right, well, let's check out this other one. This is a 2-round mock. So that popped up. So I haven't looked at this one at all. So I don't know if it's crazy. I don't know if there's any kind of, shock to it whatsoever. Probably not. But we're starting to get more like 2-round and 3-round mocks. So I'd like to see
Nice.
what they have as far as like a full plan for the Falcons. All right. So Caleb Williams, no big surprise. Drake
Yep.
May, Jaden Daniels. He has the Arizona Cardinals sticking, so they take Marvin Harrison. Makes a ton of sense.
Yep.
Chargers, he has them taking Malik Neighbors, which makes sense with both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams gone.
Yep.
New York Giants taking Roma Dunze. They desperately need weapons, so that makes sense.
Yep.
Joe Alt for Tennessee. Okay, Dallas Turner. He says, while J.J. McCarthy occupied the spot for a while, Atlanta gets their guy in Kirk for 2024 and beyond. Dallas Turner is a twitched-up athlete with athletic profile to align at a variety of spots along the line of scrimmage. He does say he'd like to see more consistency, however, but the tools are overwhelmingly apparent. Like, he's that athletic freak. Troy is the first tackle taken, for the Bears.
No, the Joe Alt.
No, Joel. So second tackle taken. Got to protect, your investment in Caleb Williams.
Yep.
Jets taking Brock Bowers,
Yeah.
which they could. Minnesota doesn't have to move and gets J.J. McCarthy. Denver grabs. So this is where I saw Denver at 12. Tony was saying they were at 14. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
Denver takes Bo Nix, which wouldn't surprise me, honestly. Vegas takes Fuaga from Oregon. Now the Saints take
Getting the run on the tackles.
run on
tackles.
Yep. For Shanu to New Orleans. Quentin Mitchell to the Colts. Seattle takes Johnny Newton. Can y'all see that?
So you might, yeah, there you go. There you go.
That better? Okay. Kool-Aid McKinstry to Jacksonville. J.C. Latham to the Bengals. Rams take Cooper DeJean. He's got Rams like Cooper going a little higher there. Pittsburgh takes Mims. Miami gets Byron Murphy. They got to do something to replace Christian Wilkins. Yep. Philadelphia gets Teron Arnold. Graham Barton. That's the name. So Minnesota takes an interior O-lineman.
Seen his name. I didn't see him coming this early.
No. J.C. Powers Johnson goes to Dallas.
Well, especially ahead of him. This guy's a guy I've heard a ton about.
Yeah, J.C. Powers Johnson, yeah. Tyler Guyton to the Packers. He's got Latu at 26.
Woo. I don't want that to happen. Please don't let that happen.
Arizona Cardinals grabs Nate Wiggins. Buffalo gets Keenan Coleman. So it's another wide receiver. Detroit gets Adonai Mitchell. Kingsley something or another out of BYU, a tackle for the Ravens. Jared Verse at 31
Jesus.
to San Francisco. I mean, he's got Roman Wilson up in the first round. That's interesting.
Wow.
All right,
Okay.
let's move on to the second one. Xavier Leggett,
Oh
Lad
man.
McConkey. No,
Oh
Lad. I mean, it just kind of feels right that he'd be in New England, but still, Lad. Zach Frazier, center for the Cardinals. Washington gets Jordan Morgan. Uh,
yeah.
Los Angeles gets Kamir Lassiter,
Yep.
cornerback out of
Kamari.
Georgia. Tennessee gets Enos Rakestraw Jr., cornerback out of Missouri. Panthers get Chop Robinson. They lost Brian
Oh
Burns, so
dang it.
let's see. I'm gonna hide Atlanta.
I
Build some
really,
suspense.
I really like Chop Robinson too.
Yeah. Washington gets TJ Tampa. That's a cornerback we talked about with
Yep.
Savion Mixon last week. Green Bay gets Michael Sinistril, cornerback out of Michigan. Houston, the pick before us, gets Brandon Fisk.
Oh man, that's my guy that I
I
would
know,
love to
yeah, I know.
have.
All
Oh
right,
my
let's see
god.
who he gives us in Atlanta. Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver out of LSU.
Wow, they got
To
Spencer going in fairly
the
early in the
second, yeah.
second.
That's and then New Orleans gets Braylon Trice. If we go Turner, I wouldn't expect us to double dip 2 rounds in a row with Trice, but I wouldn't mind getting Trice in the second.
Yeah.
Tyler Newby, the safety, going to the Colts.
I'm surprised we haven't seen Tavondre Sweat somewhere.
Yeah. Darius Robinson, that edge, going to Jacksonville.
Wow, okay.
Ricky Pearsall is I almost would have. I kind of like Ricky Pearsall over
Yeah.
Brian, but Brian Thomas has got a lot of really good traits. Cooper Beebe, Peyton Wilson, a linebacker, really fast linebacker. Chris
Xavier
Bracewell,
Worthy.
yeah,
To
Worthy to the
Philadelphia.
Eagles. Chris Jenkins to the Browns. Malachi Corley to the Dolphins. Yeah, a yak guy for uh, Mike Daniels makes total sense.
Oh yeah.
Makes
Yeah.
total sense.
Absolutely.
Cam Hart to the Bucks. Yeah, they traded a corner to Detroit, so that makes sense. Edrin Cooper, hurt. He tore up his like pro day, like killed it. Houston gets Kyrie Jackson.
Yeah.
Javon Bullard, I wouldn't mind him. Um, to the Bills, Detroit gets Christian Haynes, Max Milton to the Ravens, Fisher to the tackle to the 49ers, and Marshawn Keelan, edge to the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's not bad. So it gives us an edge and a wide receiver.
Yeah.
So that's
I'm
not too bad.
surprised. A lot of mocks I've seen have Brian Thomas going in the first round, so I'm surprised he slipped that far.
Yeah, yeah, he had a couple different guys, and that's one reason why, like, as we start to get into these guys giving us more than just one round of the draft, that's where you start to see some different thinking of how these guys view certain players. Uh, this guy JW says at pick 8 it should be Neighbors if he's there. If not, then trade down a few spots and take the top edge rusher or cornerback. Obviously, it would be cornerback if they acquire Reddick.
I say
Yeah.
I don't think that. Like if I'm looking at this draft, if I'm able to move back a few spots and still have a shot at one of the top 3 pass rushers,
Even if you get Reddick,
even if
you
you get
take
Reddick, I mean, because again, you look at San Francisco, they had Bosa, they got these guys, and they just kept adding guys.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
you can never. That's one of the positions you can never have too much.
Nope. Because then here's the deal: like Hassan Reddick, as much as I would not be upset, if we got Hassan Reddick, don't get me wrong. He's an interesting case because he's 6'1" and plays around 235, 240. He's like
tiny.
he shouldn't work.
Yeah.
Like legitimately. And so when a guy like shouldn't work but yet does, that always makes me concerned that is it eventually going to just fall off, right? So like the last 4 years, he had 12 sacks in Arizona, 12 and a half was like breakout year, and that was his 4th year in the league. And then 11 in Carolina, 16 in Philly, followed up by 11 in Philly. So he's done it for 4 years. So I can't say that he's not like effective and he's just, being a product
Well,
of a really good line.
well, okay. So when he was in Arizona, they especially back then, like they typically over the last decade or so have typically had pretty good defensive lines.
I was gonna say, like,
Uh,
that year in Arizona, J.J. Watt was on that line,
yeah.
and then
So and then he goes to Carolina, and they have traditionally
Brian
had
Burns, Derek Brown, like they had pieces. That's what I'm saying. Like, and then
and
in
then, and then you
Philly,
and then you go to Philadelphia, and you got those guys in the middle that are
right?
allowing him one on ones and all that jazz. So, like,
I just don't
I'm
know.
not saying he's not good.
No,
I'm just saying that coming here, would he have the similar situation? But you could say Grady Jarrett and Onyemata in the middle can help him out on the edge, and absolutely he absolutely can. But he's also then coming into what we believe is going to be a little more of a traditional 3-4, maybe the tight formation, but still he's probably going to be on in a 2 point stance a lot more than a 4 point stance. He's going to have to go out and cover, which he probably do. He's not so big that he can't get out and cover, so he'd probably be okay at that. But I don't know.
right. That's
But it,
yeah. I'm
but
with you. That's a concern.
but I want him,
Oh yeah,
and we'll see how it goes. But that in no way, shape, or form. If we get Reddick, does that mean that we're not picking a edge at 8 or 11 or 12 or wherever we end up if they're still available? Which, from all accounts, like every other draft or every mock draft I've seen, it doesn't seem like there's a run on edge because as we've seen, obviously you got the top three, but then you got Chop Robinson, you got Nealon, you got Darius Robinson, you got a bunch of guys that the fall off from the top three to the next tier of guys is probably not as big as what we've seen in the past. So again, just like you said before, this is a deep draft when it comes to the edge.
yeah. There's a
Uh,
lot of like really good functional edge. There's not like a like overwhelming edge, but like I even agree here. Like even if we like only says even if we get Reddick, I still think Dallas Turner is the pick. I still think that you add edge at 8 or wherever. Like if the guy you like is there, if it's Latu, if it's Verse, if it's Turner, like
yeah,
you add him. And if it's a
I would
corner,
be, I'll be completely honest. Like I'm talking about Latu, and that like this is a guy that I think is like ready made to step in and beat NFL right or left tackles day one.
right?
And be good in the run and all that jazz. Like I think he's that guy. But I'm telling you, if we get Turner, I'm not going to be
Oh
sad
no,
about it.
heck no.
If we get Verse, I'm not going to be sad
Nope.
about that. Like I think all these guys can be good in the NFL? Yes. Do I think from a suffering Falcons fan who has heard too many times, this guy's great. He just needs to develop an extra move. And then they come into Atlanta and they never ever develop that next move until they get somewhere else. And then they somehow
Well,
miraculously find their next move. You know?
well, let's hope that the guy who helped coach Bosa and Mac can have some great input and get the best out of whoever they bring in. Uh, so I'm interested about that.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that pretty much covers it for today, my guy. Is there
Yeah.
anything else that?
Well, so okay. I wasn't sure if we were going to talk about it, but we can. There's been the talk that maybe there was some tampering with the
Yep.
Cousins
Okay. Yep.
deal.
Yeah.
Apparently the Mooney thing is also maybe in there as well. But
Yeah. Especially if you read anything from Mike Florio, who has a absolute hard on to bury the Falcons.
well, he's a guy that like okay, look, the uh the what was it? Who was the very first pick that was like they have agreed to terms, and it's usually like when that happens every single year. We're talking within half an hour
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
to maybe an hour.
It was DeAndre Swift of the Eagles this
Yeah,
year.
and so it was like boom, and so every year you get what's his face complains about this is tampering. Oh, this is tampering. Oh, blah, 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 blah. It's like, shut up. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Because it was happening before. Nobody ever got caught with it. They just gave this legal tampering period to give the appearance that it happened within the legal tampering period,
Right.
and so forth. The actual restrictions, from my understanding, and based on what I've looking when I look it up, the only one, okay, of the restrictions that I could even think of that they would conceivably say, and maybe they want to be like, well, it's within the spirit of the rule, kind of a
Right. Right.
situation, is the no facility visits, where a player cannot visit other teams' facilities during this period. Now, he did not do so. Okay. In his speech, he said he was having conversations on the ride to Atlanta after the deal had been finalized. We were just waiting for the official day where he could actually sign the paperwork and all this other stuff. The deal was finalized. It was done. Just it wasn't official yet. But on his way here, he called and spoke to the trainer.
Right.
Technically, he did not go into the facility. He called a guy. you know, so I mean, if you want to lawyer it, then the reality is he never set foot in a facility until the day he went to go sign his contract.
I'll say this. Up until like Florio ran his piece, and I was kind of waiting to see if there would be rumblings from any of the other like insiders, and there was not a single rumbling from Schefter, from Rappaport, from Darlington, from any of the any of the other like insiders. So until I start seeing rumblings from them, it's not something I'm necessarily all that concerned about. Because as you said, if the rule states that you can't be in the facility, now they did hit Miami, a few years back with the Tom Brady thing,
Yeah,
because he was on the owner's yacht or something.
yeah.
And so, uh, I don't know if there's some kind of, weird.
Well, so here's what I'll say. The other restriction you would look at here would be uh, direct negotiations can only happen between a player's agent and interested teams, which is why you probably don't see a lot of like guys who are going without agents, who are representing themselves. That can't happen in the legal tampering period because you cannot talk to the player. You can only talk with their agent. And if a guy is representing himself, you can't talk to his agent because he doesn't have any. His agent is himself. So those guys have to wait until the actual league year starts before they can even begin negotiations.
Right.
So what I will say is, you know, Brady being on the yacht with the owner, that could be construed as there was some kind of negotiations that were taking place between an owner of the team and who has final say, potentially has final say over everything if he really wants to, and the player, right? Not
Uh-huh.
this player's agent, but this player, all right? So you had that. Here you're talking, if what he's saying is true, and this is the only thing that happened, is he talked to a trainer over the phone because he's rehabbing his Achilles. If that's all that actually uh, do, then you're not doing contract negotiations with a trainer.
Right. And here's the deal with the Miami one. It says the communications began as early as 2019 and continued through the 2019 season and postseason. That was the reason why Miami got in trouble.
Oh
Is
yeah,
because he was still under contract and they were talking to him, which that I don't. I'm positive the Falcons didn't do.
yeah. No,
Um, Fred, appreciate you with the $2 there. He says
appreciate it, Mr. Butts.
he said he met the trainers first and then changed it. And I think it's like he met him, but then he changed it to like he talked to him on the phone. Um, So, like I said, they'll like if they think there's a reason to investigate, they'll do that. Um, and so, but as far as like the Latu thing, kind of put a bow on that. It was rumored earlier this week, or over the weekend maybe, that Latu's rumored to be number one on the board at Flowery Branch. Chris reminded us of that, so I just wanted to kind of put a bow on that Latu stuff from earlier.
Yeah.
Let's see. How'd that comment?
It, wou- it,
So
wou-
let's see.
it wouldn't surprise me, especially like you said with Jimmy Lake, being being a guy that coached him.
Right. That's
Wouldn't
the thing is
surprise me in the
like if you
slightest.
have Jimmy Lake has that firsthand knowledge of him, and so he could be higher on their board mainly because of that. So let's see. Yeah. So as far as what had the Dolphins losing a first round pick in their tampering stuff was the fact that they had contact with Brady well ahead of time, like
Yeah.
well in advance.
Well, there
And
was talk about him becoming like a part owner too, right? Like a
right, or
stake, a
something like
stake in
that.
the team.
Right. There was some, craziness going on with all that. So that's why uh the I don't think if we lose anything, I would imagine this probably would be a fine. Um it may be a late round pick. I don't think we would lose anything of substantial because like I said, I think it would be a deal where we had to have talked to him like early and then we didn't in that
Yeah.
aspect. Even with Florio's trumped up craziness, that he likes. So let's see. See, Latu is my number one, but Versa Turner would also be great. Latu would know some of the verbiage because of his time with Coach Lake. Yeah, and that familiarity that speeds up the process. And
Mhm.
he's like these coaches, they like that familiarity, which has shocked me why we haven't seen Akio Witherspoon or John Johnson or any of those guys come over from the Rams. I'm not even sure if we've gotten anybody from the Rams, have we? At all?
Don't think so.
Yeah, so that's definitely interesting.
Mostly coaches. We haven't gotten any
Yeah, well, we
players.
got coaches, but I'm talking about like players to kind of help
Yeah.
run the system, so to speak. So all right, folks. I think that's gonna do it for us tonight. We covered some good ground. It's gonna be a lot of draft talk, as that's the
Oh yeah.
next big hurdle. So
This
y'all
this
need
is
to
probably
do
this is probably my favorite time of the off season. It's before the draft. And if there's anything that I like to do, it's completely talk out of my backside about things that and just go back and forth over. Well, this week I think it's this guy, and this week I think
right.
it's that guy, and this is
So y'all definitely
that's
need
my
to
favorite part.
So y'all definitely need to get brushed up on your diamond in the rough type people. I think next week we'll do a another mock ourselves. This week we did a mockery, so next week we'll do our own mock. So y'all need to freshen up on who y'all want to argue about, and we will get to it. Uh,
That's another thing. Like that 2 round mock, uh, it was a throughout the entire first 2 rounds. Tavondre Sweat didn't go to anybody.
and he might not like a real big like we were shocked. It was a few years back with Travis Jones, who eventually went to the Baltimore. We were like, oh, he's definitely going like second round. I think he went like third or maybe even fourth that year. I can't
Oof.
remember. So yeah, it could be a deal where you get Sweat later on. So we'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out.
Yep.
As always, y'all can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Grimm1128, GRIMM1128. Jonathan,
At Jonathan M. Holder, come by, say hi.
there you go. Uh, keep your eye on the channel. Probably gonna try to do maybe start doing some draft video stuff this week, maybe. If not, I do have a idea that's kicking around in my head, so we might go that route. But anyway, keep your eye on the channel. We'll probably have something out on Friday or Saturday, and then we will be back on Tuesday with another live show. As always, Falcons fans, rise up.
Rise up.